What is up, guys? My name is Mackenzie, and this is the third week out of 12 in my Design to Code challenge. So the past 2 weeks, we both designed and coded an agency website, and in this episode, I'm going to walk you through how to design a movie and TV show trailer site. So let's hop on the computer and get going. All right, so again, we are designing a movie and TV show trailer site. So what I'm thinking is up top, we're gonna have a navigation, then we're gonna have a banner with a featured movie or TV show with details about that. And then below that, we're gonna list popular movies, and then below that, popular TV shows. And then we'll have a call to action to get people to sign up for a newsletter. So let me just sketch it up real quick and I'll show you what I'm thinking. All right, so again, up top, we're gonna have the header, then the banner with a featured movie or TV show. And then I'm gonna list out the popular movies and then again, the popular TV shows. And then at the very bottom, we're gonna do a final call to action to get people to sign up for a newsletter list, and then the footer with just the logo and like copyright information. So let's jump on the computer and get going. All right, guys, let's begin. So I'm going to create a new document, and I'm going to select the document type as artboard, and then the artboard size, I'm just gonna do the default MacBook Pro Retina, which is gonna be 2880 by 1800 pixels. Yes, this is a bit large, but we can always scale down. The design is much easier to scale down, and it is almost impossible to scale up unless you have the right asset size. So I usually prefer to work at a larger size. So MacBook Pro 15 Retina, so it's going to be 2880 by 1800, 72 pixels per inch. So I'm going to hit OK, and the first thing I want to do is go ahead and set up some guides. So on the left, let's do 5%. On the right, let's do 5% as well. I want to set up quite a few columns. I'm going to do 6 columns on this design. So it's going to be 5% on either side and then 6 columns in between with a 50 pixel gutter. All right, so that should give us a good workspace to go from. So the font I want to use on this site is Open Sans. It is a very clean font that works well as both a headline as well as the body copy. So let's go ahead and use that as a logo. I'm going to do Open Sans, and let's make this bold. And I'm just going to call this site movies and stuff. Let's left justify that. Make sure to put it on the margin. I want to change the color to a darker, almost blackish gray. That looks pretty good. And then I'm going to open up the panel, and let's make it all caps. And then I'm just going to change the the ampersand to a regular font weight to switch it up a bit. Cool. So next, let's do the navigation. So I'm going to copy that, right justify it. Let's add some navigation items. So let's say movies. Then let's add some space and maybe TV shows. Just gonna copy this with the spacing so it's all the same. I'll say celebs and photos, and then do it once more and just say news. I do not want this all caps, so let's change that, and I don't want it bold either. Font size shouldn't be as big as the logo, so let's shrink it down a bit. That looks pretty good. And let's change the color to a lighter gray, a bluish gray. Let's see. That looks pretty good. 606070 hex code. Stick with that for now. And then let's align it to the right margin. Cool. So that looks good for now. What I'm thinking is I'm going to do a featured banner right here. So we're going to have the navigation like so, and then we're going to list the top movies and then the top TV shows below that. But first, I want to work with this. So it doesn't really matter what color. This is just going to be, the shape is just going to be used as a mask. But before we get too far, let's select both of those layers. One thing I want to point out is if you go to auto select layer, you can individually just click on a layer and grab that and work with it. You could also do auto select group, which will select the entire group. So for example, it would select everything in this artboard, or if I grouped the logo and this rectangle together, it would grab those at the same time. I usually prefer to do auto select layer. That way I can just select individual layers and work with them as I need. So I'm going to select those, put those in a group called header, and then let's move that up top. And then this, let's put it in a group called banner. All right, so I've already gone ahead and selected some movie and TV posters that I'm going to use for this design. So I'm just going to drag those in here. So let's see, I'm going to bring out the guides and individually, they're all different sizes. So I'm just going to make them all a single column width. Now let's bring that down. And since this is probably very boring, I will just fast forward through this and meet you guys on the other side. All right, so for the Deadpool, I'm going to use this as the featured banner movie. So what I'm gonna do is make this one a bit bigger than the rest. It's going to break the columns, but that's okay. I'm going to set this as the featured one, and then we're gonna have some movie info describing the ratings and the title and the description, etc. So one thing I want to do first is, obviously I don't want just a black background. What I was thinking is I'm going to open up Chrome and go to Deadpool. I'm just going to search for images. Let's see. I'm thinking it'd be cool, maybe this one. Let me grab the image. Just going to select that, drop it in here. Beautiful. So I'm going to crop that to this background part, use it as a mask. Then I'm going to copy this rectangle and mask that as well. And I'm going to use this to darken up the image. Something like that maybe. And then since we're going to have text on top, let's blur out this image. So I've got the image layer selected. Let's go to filter, blur, and let's do a Gaussian blur. Let's just play with the radius a bit. So I don't want it so blurred that you can't tell what it is, but I do want it blurred enough so it doesn't compete visually with the text on top. So I'm thinking somewhere around 11 or 12. That looks good. I can still see the outline of Deadpool himself. Deadpool was a great movie, by the way. All right, so let's select that. That looks good to me. I'm going to select the rectangle shapes and make them a bit larger so we have a bit more room to work with. That looks pretty good. Beautiful. Okay, so let's put more emphasis on the movie poster. What I am thinking is, actually first, let's select these layers, bring them outside of the banner layer. And I'm going to group those as movie posters and hide that. Okay, whoops, I accidentally added the Deadpool layer in there. There we go. Okay, so let's hide those. Now we got something to work with. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the same thing as we did for the banner for this background image. I'm going to create a rounded rectangle shape. And I'm going to hold Alt. This way we can add some border radius. 30 pixels is a bit much, maybe something like 20, maybe a little bit lower, like 16. That looks pretty good. All right, so I'm going to put it behind the Deadpool layer. And then I'm going to use it as a mask to give the image itself the rounded corners. Let's also link those layers. And then next, let's double click on the layer. I'm going to add some drop shadow to the background shape that we're using as a mask to give it some depth between the banner and make it pop a bit more. So let's see, the size is probably good around there. We just need to bump up the opacity to make it a bit darker. Something like that would be good. Maybe 47, 76. That looks good. I think the background shape is, the darkening layer is a bit too dark. Let's lighten it up slightly. Something like that would be good. Okay. All right, so since these layers are linked, we can just grab one and move them both around, which is fantastic. All right, next thing I want to do is I'm going to open up Illustrator and I want to create just a little icon for the play button. I want to show the user that they can click on the movie poster and then play the trailer for that movie. So I'm just going to hold Shift while I do this. And I'm going to grab this center one and pull that out a bit to make the play button. Then with the A direct select tool selected, I'm going to bring in the border radius to make it rounded corners. That looks good. Now let's remove the stroke and let's drag tab into Photoshop. That looks great. Now let's just center this over the image, which happens to be right on top of his crotch. Did not plan that, but whatever. Let's add some, let's make this a bit more dynamic let's add a background shape. And actually I want to add multiple. So let's drop the opacity down to about 20%, maybe like 23. And then what I'm going to do is copy that layer, bring it back. And then I'm going to make it a bit bigger. And then let's do that again. Whoops. To give it this ringed effect. That looks pretty cool. Let's change this to play button. Looks a little weird with the positioning, but oh well. All right, so let's add the detail or the information for this. Actually, first let's make sure, bring up the guides. Let's center it to the edge of the second column and then center it vertically. Doesn't have to be perfect. We can always clean this up in code, but we want to get it mostly good. So it looks pretty vertically centered. Then let's select the banner. I'm just going to copy this and then use this to work from. So what I want to do is change color to white. Left justified. Let's just say Deadpool. And I want this to be quite a bit bigger. And then let's make it, instead of a regular font weight, let's make it the light. In my opinion, the Open Sans looks fantastic at the lighter weights. All right, then I'm gonna go to IMDb and I'm just gonna search for Deadpool. There we go. I'm just going to copy this and we'll use this as a as the description for the movie. See, that looks pretty good. We got some nice visual hierarchy. Obviously, this is the most important. Then it goes to this. The leading looks a bit high, so let's shrink that down. And then the color, let's leave it as a white, but let's drop the opacity a bit. That looks pretty good. Okay, and then I also want to have the rating or the this stuff in here as well, like the length and all that. So this doesn't need to be as big. Let's shrink it down, but make it a bold font weight. And then let's bump up the opacity back to 100%. All right, I'm gonna shrink down this, this movie poster a bit. I don't think it needs to be as large as it currently is. And then I'm going to center this vertically right next to it. Let's bring up the guide, see what we're working with. That looks pretty good. So we'd be working within the 4 centered columns. Okay, and then let's go back to Illustrator. I want to make a star shape. Let's change color so I can see what I'm doing. And then I just simply want to bring in the border radius to make it a bit softer. Cool. Doesn't really matter what color, because I am going to put on some color overlay on the layer. So let's select a highlight color. I'm going to go to the layer and then let's do color overlay. And then let's pick I'm thinking a pinkish color would pop pretty well. And then this is what we'll use for the highlight throughout the rest of the site. Actually, what about a blue or a turquoise? Something like that looks pretty good. It pops nice. Maybe add a bit more green into it. That looks pretty good. So I'm going to go with 6EE495 as the hex code. And then let's duplicate this a few more times. And then I'm going to, let's add a 5th one. And let's make this one let's make it a white, but then let's drop the opacity as if it got 4 out of 5 stars. I'm not really sure what the rating was. Let's bring this in, then select each of the layers, and then I'm going to go up here and center them equal distance between each other. Perfect. So that's looking pretty good. The height of the banner itself is a bit large. Let's, whoops. Let's see, let's grab the bottom rectangle and then center it vertically between the two. All right, that looks pretty good. So when you land on movies and stuff, you would see this top banner, and you can choose to play that video or go on down below to see the other movies. Okay, so next, let's just clean up the layers before we go. So let's see. Cool, so keep it nice and clean as we go. Now let's move on to the other info. So I'm going to select the bottom, drag that down a bit. Okay, so let's select the movies. Let's make sure they're all aligned at the top. It looks like they aren't all the same height, and that is because well, that's because I got them from different sources, so some may have been different aspect ratios. So they're pretty similar. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab the smallest one, which looks like the Jurassic World. I am going to select the rounded corner and create a shape the same size as the smallest. And this is going to be used as a mask. Let's go back down to the 16 that we used above for the Deadpool poster. Then I'm going to move that behind the Jurassic World poster and then apply the mask by holding Option and clicking between the 2 layers. Beautiful. Okay, so it's not quite the full width. Let's make sure that is the full width of the column. There we go, that looks good. So now all we need to do is I need to duplicate that rounded shape a bit, and then let's apply the mask to the other movies. Let's hide the layers. That looks pretty good. A few of them aren't quite centered as they should be. Since we have the mask, we can scale it up and out a bit. That way it goes past the edges. the Avengers, you can see it's doing the same thing. There we go, that looks good. All right, so now we got the header up top and then the featured movie with the banner right below that. Then below that, we have all the various movies. Whoops. Let me deselect that layer. What I'm going to do is I'm going to copy the Deadpool. Then what I'm going to do is bring up the same color as the logo. So it's that dark gray color. That looks good. Let's copy what we got for the navigation. And on the right side, let's say view all movies. And bring up the guides, make sure that's aligned properly. And then let's create a vertical guide to make sure it's lined up with the bottom of the Deadpool title. All right, and let's change this to top movies or popular movies. There we go, that looks pretty good. It's a bit too far. There's a bit too much space between popular movies and the banner. So let's select everything and move that up slightly. Cool. So I also want to do the same thing for TV shows, but let's first add a line between the movies and the TV shows. So I'm going to select the line tool, then it creates a black shape. I'm just going to drop the opacity of this until I get the color I want, which is a light gray color. That looks pretty good. You know, I'm not loving the color of the navigation and stuff. I feel like that could be a bit lighter still. So I'm going to change it to, that looks pretty good, 8B, 8B, 9F. And then let's apply the same to the view all movies. Perfect. Now let's select all of this, copy it again. Let's add the same amount of spacing here and here. Maybe go down a bit more. Then I'm going to say popular TV shows. And then let's say view all TVs or TV shows. Beautiful. Now let's just change, I'm going to fast forward through this, but I'm going to change all of the movie posters to TV posters that I already grabbed. So I'm going to go back to Finder. All right, there we go. That looks pretty good. So now we got popular movies, popular TV shows, a link to view all of them. All right, guys, this looks pretty good. The last thing I want to do is add a call to action to get people on a newsletter list. So below popular TV shows, let's create a new folder, and I will call this newsletter sign up. And then let's extend the artboard a bit. So inside of here, let's grab the rectangle tool and create a background shape. And I'm thinking this should be the same color. Oops, not that. Let's grab the color of this. Same dark color that we have here. Or maybe it should be the highlight color. Let's try the green. Oy, no, that's a bit too in your face then. Gives the entire design a brighter feeling than I'm going for. I want the emphasis to be on the actual content and not the design itself. Okay, so below here, let's add some other stuff. Let's change this to a white color. And I'll say, get the best movies and TV shows. TV show. All right, let's do movie and TV show trailers. Straight in your inbox each week. Then I'm going to select that. Let's center it. I'm going to scale down the leading a bit, make it a bit tighter. That looks pretty good. Let's see, let's center this. Perfect. Now we just need a input for the first name, input for the email address, and a subscribe button. So let's create a rounded rectangle shape. Let's bring up the guides. Thinking maybe this should be 2 columns each. Let's change the color to white and bring down the border radius quite a bit, maybe to like 10. Doesn't need to be that large on this. And then I'm going to duplicate that. And what I want to do is grab both of those layers, drop the opacity down quite a bit, maybe to like 10%. So you can tell it's there, but it's not like in your face. And then let's add some placeholder text. Let's say first name. Select justify it. Make it easier to work with and shrink it down a bit. There we go, that looks good. Whoa. Bring that layer on top. That's why I couldn't grab it. Okay. And then on here, we will do email address. That looks a bit large. I'm going to select both the background shapes and shrink it down. Maybe something like that. Then let's center it. Make it the gutter column apart, and then adjust the placeholders to match. That looks better. And then finally we need a submit button. So I'm going to grab the rectangle tool again, and below here, let's create just a button shape. Let's make this the highlight color, which is that green that we used up top. And then let's bring a shape on top of it. And let's say submit. And instead of the lightweight, let's do a bold on this. And I'll say subscribe actually. That looks pretty good. Now let's just center that. And center that within the button, and then center the button within everything. There we go. Now, I don't like the border radius. Let's bump it up as high as it can go. So it's 59.5. That way it's a half circle on each side. Beautiful. The height of these are bugging me a bit. I'm going to select everything and just scale it down so it's a bit smaller. And then let's place it vertically between the button and the title. And let's bring the background shape in a bit. Beautiful. All right, then finally, the last thing I need to do, let's select all these, group it. Oops, it is a newsletter. Actually, it's not a newsletter. Let's add that to the newsletter group. Beautiful. And then finally, I just need to add a footer. So I'm going to simply copy the navigation or the header stuff. Let's select both of those layers and bring it down low. For the logo, I want to center this. Let's bring up the guides. There we go. And then let's use the navigation to write our copyright info. So I will say Option G to do the copyright symbol 2016. I'll say movies and stuff. All rights reserved. You know, all the mumbo jumbo that every site has. Then below that, let's do terms of service, add a few links, then some space, and a privacy policy. And let's shrink down the font size of those. There we go, that looks good. Now I'm going to bring up the canvas a bit. All right, let's see what we're working with. So up top, you got our header with the logo and navigation. Then below that, we have a banner with a featured movie. Allows you to see information about that movie, the rating, and then play a trailer. Below that, we show popular movies, and then you can click to see all the popular movies or the popular TV shows. And then finally, below that, you have the option to get all of this stuff in your inbox every week. And then we have the footer, which is not quite vertically centered. So let's crop that in slightly more. There we go. That looks pretty good. All right, guys, that wraps up this episode. I really hope you enjoyed this video and you learned a lot about how we designed this movie and TV show trailer site. If you'd like to pick up the source file, the PSD from this episode, go to mackenziechilde.me/week-3, and I'll put the link in the description below. As always, like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed this video and you want to see more. And be sure to join me next week when we turn this design into the front end code. See ya! What is up, guys? My name is Mackenzie, and this is the third week. And in today's episode, I'm going to walk you through how to design a movie and trailer. So the last 2 weeks, we designed and coded a